Dando início à nossa programação, aproveito para chamar ao palco aqui a nossa primeira palestrante de hoje. Não vou errar esse nome. LeFevre, ok? Oh, não. Então, a Heather é professora da Masterclass da Hyper Island e vai começar esse papo, então, com a gente. Seja muito bem-vinda.
Bom dia. Okay. My name is Heather LeFevre. LeFevre. Maybe we all say it together. Now we can all be amigos. Okay. Desculpa, ne falo português, but I will try to speak slowly, and there are some very excellent translators here today. I'll turn this like this. Here's my clicker. There we go. Today I would like to tell you an epic tale for the modern marketer. That's you. Gather close that you might hearken. The story of the crumbling destruction of Atlantia. Citizens of the realm who once took joy to hear what companies had to say now forged weapons against their dispatches. People gladly paid good coin for new cloaks of invisibility offered by Netflix, Terra, and Spotify, while others discovered amulets programmed by ad blocker to protect their browsers. It came to pass that you were more likely to die from dragon attack than click on a banner ad. Over time, people began to forget about brands. They couldn't tell the difference between them anymore. They wished for darkness to fall upon brands and wipe them off the face of the earth forever. Don't you love it when you have a chance to use the fire? Yeah, very rare opportunity. I live in Atlantia. I live in a world where capitalism is what makes things go around. But I also wonder if I'm contributing to a world of noise. Who here uses any of these services? Anyone? Yes. I use these services. I am biting the hand that feeds me, and I see you guys are biting hands as well. Then I discovered ad blocker. Who here is using ad blocker on their browser? Anyone? Few people, okay. We're now at, this from June of last year, nearly 5% of the internet is using ad blocker. And it's far more. It's over 20% in Greece and Poland and Sweden and Denmark. We are more likely to survive a plane crash, not just be in a plane crash, but survive a plane crash or win the lottery than to click on a banner ad. And when you ask people about brands, some different studies have shown that 4 out of 5 see brands as becoming less distinct, and only 7% of people can see a clear position in the advertising that they see. The nail in the coffin, the majority of people couldn't care less if 3 out of 4 brands were wiped from the face of the earth. They disappeared. I care about the work that I do. I care about the energy, my life force, my time on this planet being done for some good purpose. I don't want to be making something that people wish would disappear. So when I had this realization, I did what most normal people would do. I scheduled a midlife crisis. And I decided to quit my job and apprentice myself to different strategists around the world. So I asked, some of you may know I do a survey of planners. I do the planning survey. So I put it out there. I would like to come and spend 2 weeks with you and learn what it is that you're doing. And lucky for me, 9 people said yes. I went to Hong Kong, Singapore, Beijing, Shanghai, London, Edinburgh, and Scotland, and Seattle. I spent time with people working in digital agencies, social media companies, agency labs, innovation consultancies, and regular ad agencies. And the twist is that I stayed with them in their home with their family. And I know what you're thinking, name fodendo. I would not let this lady come and stay in my house. And I know it's true because none of you invited me. I did not get to come to Brazil. One of the wives of Jason Oak, who I stayed with, his wife Meredith, said, "Now let me get this straight. You want to invite your 6-foot-tall, blonde, single friend who you met on the internet to come and stay in our house." But in fact, they did agree. And right now I'm writing about what I learned from these 9 incredible people. And I plan to call the book Brain Surfing. It's very hard to write a book. I encourage you all to have the experience, especially the women in the room. There's not enough women, and we'll see some of the things I'm talking about today are from men, but we have things to say too. And I like to think that I took some inspiration from the Buddha to go into the wilderness to learn from the holy men and one woman of our time. And spoiler alert, I have not yet reached enlightenment. I still work in this industry, and I still love it. But I think about it vastly differently than I did when I began my journey. So I know we're going to be talking a lot about what's new, and Daniele stood here just now and said, everything is changing. And that's true. There's a lot of things that are changing, a lot of shiny new things. But one of the most incredible things that I discovered is that every person I stayed with, we also talked about the things that have not changed. They pointed me toward old research that I should go and look at and learn about. And one of the big ahas that I had on my journey is that the fundamental process to create sustainable brands has not changed. That fundamental process to build and grow brands is something that we all need to learn about. And I'd like to share some of those things with you. Let's dig in. William Moran. This guy wrote a really incredible paper back in 1990 about how we can achieve sustainable profit for a brand. And he had 2 simple points. The first is that a brand must get your attention. It has to have both presence in your mind, mental presence, and physical presence in the world. So that's, the process of being creative and getting that, earning your attention. So one of the things that comes to mind are those stats about the banner ad, that it's very easy for us to not even notice it anymore because it's disrespectful of our attention. And I think as we learn about new technologies like beacons that are going to ping people as they pass by your store, or they ping people as you go past the theater and ask you to come in and watch a film, are we being respectful of their attention? The other thing he talked about is creating value for people. A brand must have utility for people. It must do something for them. And it's not just the functional feeding me or providing the service of, Uber, getting me from A to B. It can also be beauty. It can also be the experience and all of the things that you create around that product or the service. I think the people in this room are very, very good at finding value because in our careers, as we've tried to communicate with people and we learn about them and we care about them, we inevitably discover the other things that we can do that would be more valuable for them. We want to make products better for them. And I think that's why we've gotten into innovation. So, this is one of my favorite innovations. Do you have this in Brazil? Bacon crust pizza? Yeah? No, not delicious. So beyond just the silly, but we're always looking for what it is that will make people's life better. So value and attention are important. They always have been, And we're learning new ways to get people's attention. We're learning new ways to create value. That's great. There's another batch of research from two gentlemen in England, Les Binet and Peter Field. And what they did was they wanted to understand, how could a brand get disproportionate advantage over other brands? In a competitive landscape, how can you one-up the next guy? So what they did was they looked at all of the brands that had gun report scores. And if you're not familiar with this, you have to have won a major creative award like a Cannes Lion to be in the gun report. And they compared that with the brands that had won an IPA effectiveness award. So you have to have proven that your campaign has been effective in the marketplace. So looking at the brands that met both of those criteria, they were very creative and they were very effective. They looked, what do those brands, what have they done, and comparing them to the ones that were just effective, but not as creative. They found three things. One, that investment is very important. When you overinvest, when you spend more than your market share, that is one way that you can have this lever to have competitive advantage. Okay, we can buy our way into being superior. They also found that time was a lever, that doing something for a longer period of time will help to grow your brand. So sometimes we think very short term. And I know no one in here is thinking short term, but I have had the experience with my clients that we only care about this quarter or this half of the year or this year. But brands build over long periods of time. They also found, my favorite one, that creativity is very, very powerful. And when comparing those effective brands, those effective cases, versus the ones that were effective and creative, they found that when you spend 10 points of excess share of voice, so you have your market share, and if you spend more than the equivalent market share, 10 points more, that creative work gets 11 times more market share growth than those cases that were simply effective. Does that make sense? I'm going to look to you guys. Are you nodding your head? Yes, good. Okay. So to recap, if you want to grow, there are three ways to inject extra oomph into your brand, and that's investment of money, time, and creativity. And the trouble I've seen with many companies and many of my students at Hyper Island is that we are crazy busy, and we're trying to learn all of these new things while at the same time keep our head above water. So we're not reading a lot of old research reports from 1990, and we've got a lot of fires to fight, and sometimes it's hard to fight for creativity. So sometimes I ask myself, am I fighting hard enough? This is me feeling shame. Because I've got the nice things on my resume and my CV, the times that things have done very well and they've won awards at Cannes, but I have also worked on things that I am not so proud of. There have been social media campaigns where my clients have said things like, click like if you are looking forward to the holidays, and things that have absolutely nothing to do with an insurance brand. So I wonder if there's something else that I could have done, if there's more fight that I could have put in. And I think all of us need to think a little bit more about being a hero to our brands. And I wonder who is the next Chico Mendes and Tiradentes of advertising, because there are these kinds of people, these kinds of characteristics that we should look toward. And there's a couple of other, every hero needs superpowers. So there's a few other pieces of fodder and information that I'd like to share with you that I think are two superpowers that will help us. So Ian Leslie, another white guy from England, wrote this beautiful book called Curiosity. And in it, he talks about the unintended result of technology. Now, when we go to Google, we barely notice anymore, you see the 0.57 seconds to get the answer. Google's super fast. There's now instant search. So as you've noticed, as you start to type, it predicts what you're going to ask Google. So it can be even faster. And their goal is to know what you want to know before you even know you want to know it. That's great. That is really great when there's one right answer. But with what we're doing, when we're trying to create something that's never been done before, we have to make up the answer. And so think tools like this are creating what he calls a serendipity deficit. And speaking with the lovely translators, they told me that serendipity is not a word in Portuguese. So it's the learning of something by chance. It's taken from a story. There was Prince Serendip, and they have stolen that word into English to talk about chance encounters. And what Ian is saying is that we have a deficit of serendipity, a deficit of chance encounters with things, because we're all looking at the same places for the answer. But what creativity calls for is heterogeneous information, very different things. If you look at the Gutenberg Bible, the press, Gutenberg had made wine before earlier. So he took what he'd learned from making wine and from the pressing of the grapes, and he stole that and he brought it over to create the printing press. We need this very different bits of information. It relies on unexpected collisions of random information, ideas, and knowledge. And it's not just this many pieces, it's even more. We need lots and lots of collisions. So it takes hard work to get this many items into your brain so that you have the capacity and the capability to have those collisions. And life would be so much more simple if we knew what we needed to learn. If we just learned to code, then everything would be okay. Who here has started to learn to code? Anybody trying? A few? Oh, right. You guys have a little club. You're all sitting next to each other. That's great. I hope that that is exactly what you need to learn, but there's no telling what things we need to learn. So we have to be curious. We have to be insanely curious. And curiosity takes effort. It takes stumbling into a bookstore and just, going with whatever strikes your eye, going deep and spending time with things. I don't think I would have known this if I hadn't tried writing a book myself, because it's really hard. And it's taken me going down lots of rabbit holes of the different little bits and pieces that these people introduced me to make sense of everything that I learned and to make a cohesive story to share with all of you. Ian Leslie says it like this: if we want to think outside of the box, we need to look in other boxes. So real curiosity can be a superpower. Now I'd like to introduce you to Ruth Chang, a lady, yay. She taught me another superpower. Let's watch her. Oh, we have no sound. Can we try again? Should I hit it? Okay. No. What do you think? I can pretty much tell you what she says. Okay.
Think of a hard choice you'll face in the near future. It might be between two careers, artist and accountant, or places to live, the city or the country, or even between two people to marry. You could marry Betty, or you could marry Lolita. Or it might be a choice about whether to have children, to have an ailing parent move in with you, to raise your child in a religion that your partner lives by but leaves you cold, or whether to donate your life savings to charity. Chances are the hard choice you thought of was something big, something momentous, something that matters to you. Hard choices seem to be occasions for agonizing, hand-wringing, the gnashing of teeth. But I think we've misunderstood hard choices and the role they play in our lives. Understanding hard choices uncovers a hidden power each of us possesses. What makes a choice hard is the way the alternatives relate. In an easy choice, one alternative is better than the other. In a hard choice, one alternative is better in some ways, the other alternative is better in other ways, and neither is better than the other overall.
So I love this. I love thinking about this in terms of our lives. So if you were thinking about taking a new job, one might pay you more than the other. So if you were only deciding based on the salary, it would be what she's calling an easy choice. But the hard choices are when you can't decide simply on a quantitative measure. Hard choices are like a tangled knot, where it's based on your principles and your values. So let's go back to that job idea again. You may value living in the country, like she described, or the city. So you may take a sacrifice on the pay. And I think that this applies to business so much, because we want to make every decision in business an easy choice. And I know that easy choices in business don't always feel easy. We have to collect the data. We have to do the analysis, and that requires effort and work. But what I'm talking about is the decisions such as creativity, such as putting our effort behind something that has never been done before. You have to make those decisions based on principles. And I think that how many of you have heard of Simon Sinek and Start With Why, Your Brand Needs a Purpose? Can you raise your hand if you have? Yeah. I think the reason that that's become so popular is that we're trying to find our way into discriminating between the easy choices and the hard choices. But I've seen so many presentations where there is a purpose-driven slide, and then it doesn't lead to any action, because we can't distinguish between these hard choices and these easy choices. And what she says, hard choices are hard because there is no best option. It's impossible to tell sometimes what is the right answer in a hard choice. And when you can't make hard choices, something really interesting happens. And she goes on to talk about people who never make hard choices in their life. And she calls them drifters. And from what I've been told, à deriva in Portuguese. I've noticed, I'm a older sibling. I was the firstborn. And I've noticed my younger brothers kind of like this, and some of my friends, they're not to disparage anybody who was born second, but, you know, we can sometimes like go through life just however the wind blows us, and we stumble into our jobs, and we're not always making decisions. But let's think about that with brands. When brands are always trying to make their decisions based on quantitative figures, and they wait, and they don't try, and they don't experiment, you just fall farther and farther behind. So what I think we need to do is encourage our brands to be active. They can't be drifters, because in this complex world where we can't always tell what is going to work, we need to experiment, we need to try, and we need to learn from those experiments. So what I want to leave you today is that creativity has always been powerful, but it has also been studied. And this is a little piece of ammunition when you go back to work to say, hey guys, let's maybe wait on, this isn't good enough. Let's work harder. Let's stay later tonight. And that curiosity will maybe save us from staying at work until midnight. Maybe we can get out of there at 9 because we have a better idea that comes to us because we've dug in, we've worked harder, and we have that collision that's going to kick ass. And that also our principles are a hidden superpower, that if we can help our brands discover who it is that they want to be, and it's not just about being what the customer wants us to be. It's about figuring out who we want to be as a company and going for it. Because companies can change culture. If you have imagination, that is its own form of courage. I think heroism is essential for us in business today. I think we need people who are prepared to take risks and tell us what we don't want to hear. Heroes face possible defeat for a principle. And heroes tackle insurmountable odds. To me, you are the hero in this story. And the monster is big, boring, bland, annoying, uninspired work. Fight for it. Thank you. So, yeah. Before we are going to let you ask questions if you happen to have questions, but because you're my amigos, I am offering you a discount if you can make your way to Sao Paulo in the 9th to the 11th of April. We're going to have another master class about digital acceleration. And I know that there's a few people who have been before. You can certainly ask me questions during the breaks about what it's like. Hyper Island has been an incredible experience for me. I started teaching with them when I began doing research for the book 3 years ago, and I've been to about 25 classes now. The students are some of the smartest. You're going to meet people, this is that curiosity thing, you're going to meet people that you didn't even know you needed to meet, who are going to tell you things that you didn't even know you needed to learn, in addition to the things that you would expect to learn about technology, the way that the world is changing, and some of the ways that the world is not changing. So I hope that you will come and join and learn with us and play. It's also a lot of good fun. So, do you have some questions for me? Do you want me to go over there?
Heather, bom, tu falou um pouquinho sobre duas coisas muito importantes para as marcas construírem, né, terem competitividade e criarem aí um valor incremental. Tempo e investimento. 2 recursos completamente escassos hoje em dia ou difíceis, né, em muitas realidades. Significa que só as grandes marcas, então, estão nesse terreno da competitividade?
Well, that's why there's also the third, better check this up. It's confusing to hear yourself talk in Portuguese.
I can explain it in English if you
Yeah,
want.
I understand. Well, I think that's why the third one, creativity, is the way that you can have disproportionate value over and above the time and the investment.
So you can sometimes, you have niches, marketing?
Not just niche marketing, but like when you see something that's truly creative, like an Uber or a Google that's truly valuable, it creates its own, people become media for you. So sure, time and investment works, but so does creativity.
Ok.
Eu vou fazer uma pergunta que a Luísa me soprou e eu achei muito boa. Mas, num tempo onde se fala muito de consumer insight e se olha muito para o consumidor, tu falou sobre princípios, sobre valores, né? O quanto também a gente tem que ter coragem para olhar para os princípios da marca e também dizer o que a gente acredita que a marca quer falar. Como é que a gente consegue dosar isso entre princípios da marca, né, e o que vem do consumidor, a opinião do consumidor?
Okay, I know what you mean. I've been working with a meat company in the US right now, and so they're actually 2.5 times as big as Google, the company that provides most of the meat in the US. And they're up against the same issue right now, where people are not really ready. The regular people are not buying antibiotic-free and hormone-free meat, but they're deciding that they want to be a company that provides the best product to people. And so their values are looking into the future. And I think that that's what a lot of brands have to do, is see where they want to take the market, plus where the market is moving toward, as opposed to just being in the here and now and getting left behind. Does that make sense?
No, sounds good.
Você também, aqui nós falamos tu, né? A gente não fala você, eu estou sendo meio paulista um pouco aqui, né? Não vou negar minhas origens. Tu falou um pouco sobre fazer escolhas, né? Não só embasadas em números. Quem, dentro das organizações, teria o empoderamento ou teria a capacidade de liderança para ir além dos números, na tua opinião? Who inside the organization can lead these choices, these brand choices, without looking just for the numbers. Because it's difficult, you know. Everybody wants to measure everything all the time.
Everybody wants to measure everything all the time, yes. So I think it's the most senior client that you're able to work with is the person. And, you know, sometimes I've had the opportunity to talk with and work directly with the CEO. And that is when you have the most success. So, but I mean, every company, you have to work your way up. So it's the highest that you can go. And I think Kaio will probably talk a little bit. We were talking about politics today, that big global companies can, it's also about being friendly and having emotional intelligence, what you were talking about, and having some patience, because that's probably my kryptonite. I don't have a lot of patience. And it does take time for these decisions to be made. But I think by knowing that not every choice can be made with numbers is a start.
Ok. Bom, nós temos uma pergunta, eu vou ter que te fazer em português. Combinamos aqui isso como mecânica, mas se não estiver funcionando aí, tu me avisa. Por que largou o emprego normal, o que sentia que estava errado? Deve ser alguém que está pensando em largar o seu emprego normal.
Who's thinking about quitting? No, you're sitting next to your boss. No, no, boss, I'm not thinking about quitting. Well, part of it was because the most recent job that I had at Crispin, is that what you're talking about? Or do you mean in the story? Because I've quit twice.
Emprego normal, eu imagino que seja tradicional tendo um empregador. Eu imagino que seja tendo um empregador, né? Isso que ela quer dizer como um emprego normal. Ficou como freelancer, viajando, enfim, e não estava ligada diretamente a uma empresa.
Well, the first time that I quit my job was because I wanted to have the experience of researching the book. But then 6 months ago, I left Crispin for the second time. And it was a economic reality that they asked me to move to Colorado, and I didn't want to live there. So I'm making my own way in the world. And also, it's so hard to write a book if you just work on it on Saturdays while you're working full time, that I realized if I moved and started with new, life, that it would take me that much longer to finish. And the book is going to be about 75,000 words, and I'm at 60,000, so I'm very, very close. And I just don't want it to take any longer. Is that okay? Personal, it was my hard choice to make.
Então eu vou fazer uma pergunta. Tu falou em escolhas, eu acho que escolhas tem muito a ver com estratégia, porque eu acho que estratégia nada mais é do que fazer uma escolha. E realmente, hoje em dia, é muito difícil fazer escolhas. Então, o quanto tu acha que as pessoas realmente têm coragem para fazer escolhas, ou tu acha que está faltando coragem nas pessoas para fazer suas escolhas? Ou em organizações, em marcas? O quanto a coragem é importante para fazer uma escolha no mundo de hoje?
Okay, I understand. Well, I think it's because we don't understand the difference between the kinds of choices that we're facing, that we get into this vortex of having to measure everything and thinking that everything can be measured because there is so much data and talk of data now. So that's why I encourage people to take a step back and think about, is this a choice that can be made based on measuring, or is this a choice that takes courage? So I think just knowing the difference and then talking about it, then that is what takes the courage. And then I feel like a lot of agencies are more focused on making money, and this probably goes back to the last question, more focused on making money than in doing the best work of their lives. And that takes courage to decide that we're not going to ship something if it's not really great. if it's going to annoy people, and if it's just a puppet for the company to say what they want to say, but it doesn't connect with people's hearts.
Thank you.
Heather, tem uma, assim, que acho que é parecida com essa que a Marie fez. Como você vê a experimentação versus o risco de falhar? Como é quando as coisas dão errado?
I don't know anybody personally that's been fired from doing something in marketing that went wrong. I mean, really, the failure is being ignored and not breaking through. So I think brands are much more timid, and they're more likely to be drifters than they are to try and to fail. So to me, not doing anything, not trying and learning, is way worse. That is the failure that you don't see, that nobody really talks about.
Tu passou um ano viajando e trabalhando com estrategistas do mundo inteiro. Estamos todos conectados mesmo, com realidades simultâneas? O que é similar e o que é completamente diferente entre as realidades e os países e os profissionais que tu visitou?
So the size of budget is the main driving factor, I think, because it takes just as much work to create an idea for a brand that is small as it does to create an idea for a brand that is big. So when you have one country like the US, where it's very big and therefore they spend a lot of money for one country, you tend to have a situation where decisions get made a little bit faster compared to if you're working in all of Europe or even globally or all of another region. You have to convince each country sometimes if it's a decentralized company, or you need to do research in more countries. It becomes more complex. Let's see, what else? And then the communities are smaller. So like I've been to South Africa, I've been to Singapore, Hong Kong, Beijing, Shanghai. You know, those kinds of places have about 100 strategists in a city, in the major city in the country, as opposed to the US that has maybe 3,000 or more. And here you have maybe 1,500, same as the UK. So you have fewer people to learn from in a lot of the other places of the world. And let's see what else. But I've also seen, from doing the survey, the last time we did the survey, we asked people to give their Skype address if they wanted to be matched up, kind of like a pen pal. And 1,000 people did it. So about 500 from the US and about 500 from the rest of the world, and we matched everybody up. So I think people are hungry to learn from other countries, even though it may not be immediately applicable to what it is that they're doing. But we are not connected as an international strategy community. People are a little bit aware of some people here and there, but we're not sharing our knowledge very well, I don't think. And I don't know how to do that more, but I would like to learn from you. If something has sparked your interest, I would love to hear about it.
Agree.
Tem uma outra pergunta aqui que fala sobre qual o papel do planner e qual o do cliente no pensar estratégia.
Easy? Why do you think it's easy? You answer. Tell me. What do you think? No? What is the role of the client and what is the role of the strategist? I mean, I think we're all working together. So the client, I think that if you're a client, you have a very real commercial reality that if you are not making your numbers, you may not have your job. And if you're a CMO, at least in the US, the average CMO, I think, has their job for like 42 months. So you know from the day that you come on board, you have about 3 years to make anything happen. So whereas at an agency, you work on a project, you switch clients, you switch gears, you leave your company after a year and a half, it's no big deal, you're constantly being recruited by other companies. So I think that the stakes are higher for a client than they are for an agency person, and that's why they don't always listen to us. Because if we don't have the same kind of skin in the game, if we don't prove to them that we care about their companies growing as much as they care about their companies growing because it makes a difference to their families and their livelihood, then why should they listen to us?
As marcas cada vez mais hoje em dia precisam de uma construção... Ok. Cada vez mais as marcas hoje em dia precisam de uma construção customizada. Tu usou uma palavra num dos teus textos, crafting brands. Num mundo que hoje em dia também as grandes marcas precisam de escala. Não é o oposto? Artesanato, customização com grande escala. Understand?
Kind of. I can hear it. I'm trying to think if I understand. I think craft can be applied to a big brand I think big brands are more likely to put in the extra effort for great production, great directors, the best, technological advances, and put in that extra effort to make things very, very nice. So that's what I mean by craft is attention to detail.
Yes.
Is that
handmade?
Yeah. Well, not just handmade, no, but attention to detail. Yeah. So for sure, I think big brands maybe can do that better than small brands because small brands have to prioritize. They can't do everything. A big brand can do anything, but they can't do everything. And a small brand can only do some things and hardly all, maybe one or two things, and they really have to choose.
Sometimes big brands are not so local, do you know? They are global and not local.
So
this is important nowadays, do you think?
In what respect? What do you mean? Global versus?
In build construction?
Well, I think there's the difference between a centralized brand. So like I worked with Emirates Airline, and the corporate headquarters made all the rules, and all the countries had to follow the rules. And then if there was a special case where they thought this brand strategy isn't going to work as well in China, then we would look at that special case and make adjustments. Some companies, like a Unilever, their brands, the corporate headquarters don't have a lot of strength. The countries have a lot of power. And so in that case, it's very hard to do a global brand strategy because everybody wants to feel important, so they want to be different. And personally, I'd prefer to work on the centrally driven brands because if you believe that a global brand has power, then that is the structure that it takes to make that happen. But I also understand why the Unilevers of the world are decentralized, but it does make it a lot harder because brands can have vastly different meanings in the US versus Europe, and it becomes confusing as borders sort of fall and we become more international to see that these brands are very, very different in other places.
Agora me ocorreu uma outra pergunta, só porque a gente está falando sobre grandes marcas e pequenas marcas, negócios globais e locais. É mais fácil ou mais difícil para uma marca menor, com menos dinheiro, menos investimento, fazer escolhas, traçar suas estratégias? Ou, por ela ser uma marca pequena, ela deveria ser mais ousada e por isso é mais fácil de fazer escolhas para uma marca pequena?
I think it might be easier for smaller brands, and that's why we are all interested in how startups are doing, and because they do take risks, because they have a very short amount of time usually to make a difference before their money runs out. I'm doing some pro bono work with a small performing arts venue in Miami, and it's been a dream because I suggest something and they're like, yeah, that makes sense, let's do it. And I'm like, where am I? Somebody pinch me, you know? We don't have to go back and do it again and again and again. So I guess in my experience, smaller companies and smaller groups of people, it's less complicated because, you know, every additional person makes things more complicated, and the bigger stakes of money make things more perilous and make people more afraid.
But on the other hand, they have more information. Yep. They have more data. Yep. But I think I agree with you. I have another question here, which it is difficult. I don't know if you are going to be able to answer that. But anyway, as pessoas e as marcas estão voltando à sua essência?
I don't know what that means. Okay.
Basics.
Back to basics.
The brands are...
I don't think so. I think we're mostly getting swept up into the new and the shiny, and we forget about the basics. Yeah.
Tem mais uma?
Eu acho que tem uma parecida com isso aqui. Essa é difícil ela entender mesmo, a essência, né? É uma palavra... Você acredita que é possível ter marcas fortes sem propósito de marca claro? Acho que não. Qual a importância de ter um propósito de marca bem definido?
Like without a strong position, is it possible to have a strong brand without a clear position?
Cause.
I think some of the very old brands, is this gonna, where are you putting this video? Can I talk very openly? Okay, so MetLife is a very old brand, and do you guys have that here, MetLife, the insurance company? No? No. Okay, so it's in most of the world. What did they say? You have it? Yes, okay. So if you have what they were talking about earlier, time, they had time on their hands to become well known amongst people, and they're one of the only choices when it comes to life insurance. So there's not that many, you know, when you're talking about finances, you want somebody that is very secure. But they are almost a commodity, and they are not perceived as different from the other alternatives, but they still exist. So yes, I think it's possible if you've already been around for 50, 100 years. But eventually, I worry for companies like that because they are the ones that you constantly see being disrupted. They're the blockbuster videos and, you know, those kinds of companies where somebody else uses their creativity to come up with a better business model.
Como está acontecendo a integração entre marca e produto, a entrega? Qual a importância dessa integração no ambiente mutante?
Integration between product and brand in our mutant environment? Like, you mean changing environment? Well, I think that if you go back to sort of the short-term and long-term things that I was talking about before, that if you go deeper into the Les Binet and Peter Field's study, they talk about spending 60% of your effort on long-term and 40% on short-term, as that's sort of the optimal model. And I think we usually do much more like 80% short-term or 90% short-term. So I think that that's what is happening a lot of times. Everything should always ladder up to the brand. So if you're talking about a product, it should be a representation of that brand. But if you're only talking about an activation or a sale or something of that nature, then it can make you small. So it just sort of depends how you're doing. I don't know if you guys have the Microsoft Surface ads right now, where it's just like music and you see the Surface spinning around and it sort of features and stuff. And I'm like a total Apple fangirl, but it made me want a Surface. So I think that when they have cool products, it can really help a brand like Microsoft that feels a little bit old and a little bit not as cool. But you've got Xbox and you've got the Surface now, and so for them, I think their products really help change the perception of their brand. So it just, I mean, it's as with every single category and brand, it depends, but there should always be a connection, and I think that the product can really help build the brand.
Vou fazer uma pergunta, mais alguma aí? Vou fazer uma pergunta completamente pessoal, de curiosa. Tu veio ao Brasil 2 vezes, essa é a segunda, na verdade. A gente teve Copa do Mundo, right. A gente teve Copa do Mundo, tu já, né, visitou o Brasil, vai para Buenos Aires daqui. Se o Brasil fosse uma marca, como é que ele seria?
That's hard.
What's
my head?
in your mind?
I think you guys are really, really friendly, so and very open. So maybe it would be. I can't think of many brands that are like that. This is a special country, and the times that I've spent in Hyper Island, where people really open up about what they're afraid of and the struggles that they have at work, most of the people have been far more open than a lot of the other countries that I've visited. So I can't think of a brand that is like that. Sorry.
It's okay.
Desculpa.
It's okay. Pelo menos a gente não ouviu o carnaval.
Não foi nada tradicional a resposta dela. Tem algum limite para a criatividade ou quanto mais livre, melhor? Tu falou em pensar fora da caixa e quando se pensa fora da caixa, quem sabe olhar outras caixas, né? Então, tem algum limite para olhar outras caixas?
I think the limit is time, because I know you guys are busy and I know how hard it is just to get the things done that we need to get done. And I think after the economic crisis, there were some jobs eliminated and we had to all, come together to do all the work with fewer people. So I think that is the real struggle. And a couple of things that I think about, I don't know how easy it is in this country to be a freelancer, but I think taking sabbaticals, taking time off where maybe you work less, and giving yourself the time to think, the time to reflect, but also incorporating some of those techniques into the everyday world. So that's something that we teach at Hyper Island, is this concept of reflection. Every day that you're at a Hyper Island class, the first thing the next morning, people spend 10 minutes writing about what did I learn yesterday. Then you get in a small group and you discuss what each of you learned, because then you're not only learning what you learned, you're learning what the other 2 people learned. And then you get in a big circle and you share the one most important thing that you learned. So then you're learning from the whole group. And that is a technique that can absolutely be incorporated into the business world. And there have been studies about it, that it actually makes you more productive. If it sounds a little too, can you say hippie trippy in Portuguese? If it sounds kind of new agey, but it's been proven to work. And there are agencies in London. I know that AMV BBGO has implemented reflection as something that they're doing in their work. So that's a tool that you can steal.
Tu já teve experiência de criar uma estratégia de marca global que atuasse em diferentes culturas? Como foi essa experiência?
So Unilever with ice cream. So it's very different in Nordic countries. They eat a lot of ice cream, and in Latin America it's all about the family. So whether it's about pleasure in one part of the world and it's more about sharing in another part of the world, and trying to figure out what are the common threads that if you're trying to create a master brand. So I don't remember what the brand is in, the Heart brand, like the Kibon. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's a different name in every country, and it's one of those decentralized structures to where the headquarters would come up with a master brand, and then the countries would decide if they wanted to use it or not. So, what did I answer the question or?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Tem uma outra pergunta aqui que diz: o consumidor e o estudo do consumidor tem poder para modificar a estratégia central de uma empresa? Yeah, if they
Does
have
the
the power.
customer have the power?
And the behavior.
Does the customer's behavior have the
Yeah.
power? I absolutely think so. So like look at Blockbuster. They don't exist anymore because they didn't see their. Did you have Blockbuster here?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. They didn't see what was coming, where people would want more choices and to be able to use a disruptive technology to give them more value. You know. What are some of the others? Well, I work with Best Buy most recently, and I think that they're another one where they've got Amazon on the one hand eating their lunch, but on the other hand, do you want to live in a world where you have to buy a television over the internet and you can't go and look at it? So I think people are sort of rooting for Best Buy to get their act together, but Amazon is so good that they're really, really struggling.
Que marcas que tu admira? Que marcas que tu admira? Quais são teus benchmarks?
I like brands that have beautiful experiences. So like a Nespresso, I think they have such amazing stores. Do you guys have Lululemon yet? The yoga clothes?
Not yet.
Yeah, they're very overpriced, but they do a really nice job. What else? I'm surprised at the Microsoft stuff that I've seen lately, because I always have thought, yeah, Crispin worked with Microsoft for a brief period of time, and I know colleagues who worked with it, and they struggled a lot. And have you ever seen that video where it's really worth watching on YouTube, where it's Microsoft redesigns the iPod packaging? Have you seen that? Okay. So it's like the great, beautiful iPod packaging, and then they're like, we need to make it more human, so they slap a person of a picture on it, and we need to list all the features. So they just keep doing what Microsoft does to everything, and making it less elegant, less beautiful. So I'm happy to see Microsoft do something different with the Surface work that I've seen. And I think that the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation makes you feel better about Microsoft, because they're really trying to make a difference in the world from a like CSR kind of standpoint. So those are some brands that I admire.
Eu não sei, parece que a gente está uma eternidade aqui. A gente tem mais tempo para perguntas. Mais perguntas? Alguém?
Eu tenho mais uma aqui. Se tem mais tempo, eu vou fazer.
Can I say one more thing?
Yes.
Oh, you have another? Who here has taken the planner survey? Has anyone ever taken it before? The people in the front. Okay. So can I tell you quickly? So in 2005, I started a survey of planners because I wanted to know if I was being paid fairly as a woman. I'm very worried about these things. And that first year, I think 130 people took it just in the US. And then as I've developed and I lived in Europe, it's grown. So the last time we did the survey in 2012,
Here.
in 2012 and 2013, over 2,000 people around the world took it. And we're gearing up to do it again. So I just want to make you aware of it, because we're going to start calling it the strategy survey, because I think planning is a word that is not appropriate for what we do. And that was something that I thought about talking about today, that this idea that you can think about B, this is where we want to go, and here we are, A, and let's make a plan to get from A to B. That's not exactly how things work. That it's much more about intuition and looking and doing your due diligence, doing your research. Where has this brand been? What's going on in culture? What are the equities that are most important to bring forward? But that you also see, given the way that the world is right now, what is the best thing that we can do, making a decision to try it, building and learning on that. So you have to still be intelligent, you still have to make a choice based on some research and some thought, but it is more about intuition. And so I think strategy is the better word than planning. So, personally, and I would love it if more Brazilians would participate. You guys have always been one of the top countries to participate. So if it's new for you, have a look. It's out there on the internet if you search planner survey.
Muito obrigada, Heather. Acho que encerramos por aqui. Vamos para o próximo palestrante.
Obrigado.